probably good to start. Thank you, everyone who's joined us. This is the first time we've done a Zoom-based program here at the museum, and so bear with us on this. We'll probably be kind of figuring out a few kinks along the way. We have a 3D tour that you can actually walk through the galleries with, and what I'll be doing is sharing my screen with everyone so that they can see it, and I'll be guiding people through. My name is Jonathan Bucci. I'm Curator of Collections and Exhibitions here at the Hallie Ford Museum of Art, and I curated this exhibition titled Time and Place, Northwest Art from the Permanent Collection. So let's see, I'm going to share my screen, and then you guys can see the entry to the exhibition. There it is. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to step us in. I'm going to kind of, oops, here we come. So there's a link to this in the chat, and it's also available through the museum's website on the exhibition page. And I will do my best to not move too much and make everyone kind of sick. So there, what we'll ask in terms of questions, asking questions stuff to try to make this interactive, and since it's all so strange where I feel like I'm talking to nobody, is I'll talk, the exhibition is broken up into sections, and so what I'll do is I'll talk about each section of the exhibition and then open it up for questions. You can type your questions into the chat, and Elizabeth Garrison, our education curator, is monitoring that, so she can relay those questions to me at that time. If you want to ask your question yourself, you can use the raise your hand feature. Hopefully we will see that, and then Elizabeth can call on you. But you can also just type your question in. And if there are any artists in the exhibition who are here today, if you would like to say anything about your work when we get to it in the exhibition, or we get to the section of it in the exhibition, as I won't be talking about each artwork. If you want to say something about yours, just speak up. You can either put it in the chat, or you can just unmute and say, Jonathan, I'm here, and I'd like to, say something. That would be great to do that. So let's back up a little bit. As I give my intro, we'll look at here. So this is the first time that the Hallie Ford Museum of Art has curated a major exhibition for our main temporary exhibition space that has been curated entirely from the permanent collection. We've done many smaller exhibitions in our study gallery and print study center upstairs, and of course we use our permanent collection galleries all the time. But this is the first time we've done a thematic exhibition curated, large scale, curated from the permanent collection. So the concept is place broadly, which was a good spot to kind of start. For us, as we're a regional museum, and we collect a lot of work that's about the Northwest. And so, but in this exhibition, we are asking people to look at the concept of place through the lens of time. The exhibition is broken up into 6 sections. There are 2 thematic sections. The first one, which we're about to walk into here, is about the legacy of conquest and indigenous persistence. There's another thematic section in the back part of the gallery that looks at human impact on the land. And there are 4 geographical sections, one on the Columbia River Gorge area, one on the high desert, one on the Pacific coast, and one on the Willamette Valley. Each of these exhibitions include work by indigenous and non-indigenous artists, and each section also includes work from a range of time periods as well. So I am don't think I've forgotten anything to say before we start, so I'm going to step right into the first gallery here. Oh, and I should say before we can get started that this 3D tour that was that we're walking through was created by Elizabeth Garrison, our education curator. She did a fantastic job with it. This is the first one that she's done solely on her own. We've worked with some contractors on past ones, but this is hopefully something we'll be doing more often in the future now that we have the equipment, and Elizabeth is so good at it. So here we are with the first piece that you come to in the exhibition. Was very intentional. And I should also say as well, as I'm going through this, is one of the goals of this exhibition was to get a lot of the really wonderful objects that have been donated to the museum in recent years out on view. There are a number of things that have come in that for one reason or another have not made their way into the permanent collection galleries. And so that was a real goal with this exhibition, to really get these fantastic artworks out. There's also a lot of artworks in this exhibition that we've had for years that have never been exhibited or very rarely seen. And so those are some of the that was kind of kind of driving me to some degree. This first object that you see when you walk in is a Lower Columbia Tillamook or Clatsop wallet basket from the 1830s. This came to the museum, I think, in around 2015 or so, 2016, 2015. It has not been on view before. It is one of the most remarkable objects that we probably have in the museum's collection at this point. It is the provenance for this piece, as was described by the donor who gave it to us, was that he acquired it from the descendants of Samuel Parker, Reverend Samuel Parker, who was one of the first missionaries to come to the Oregon Territory in the 1830s. He was, I believe, the first Presbyterian minister. And that this wallet was given to him by the indigenous people who he met at the mouth of the Columbia River. It's kind of hard to tell in this picture, so I hope people get a chance to come to the museum, but it's incredibly finely woven. It's an exquisite object, and but the imagery on it is also really unusual for Western Oregon basketry imagery. It's rare that you see horses in Western Oregon baskets, and it's even more rare that you would see a horse and rider. There's a lot more research that needs to go into this piece. We've had a few experts in the field looking at it. We need to get it out to native curators and weavers as well, so that we can get their interpretations of the piece. But it is a very early example of that one of the earliest examples, as we know now, of Clatsop weaving that exists, or Tillamook weaving, Lower Columbia weaving, and we're just thrilled to have it at the museum. And the horse and rider, those three bands of figures and horses, seem to be telling perhaps some sort of a story. And this is the sort of thing that we're hoping to get to learn more about through additional research. And I thought it was a fitting piece to start the show with.
Jonathan, can you get closer to that?
I can try. Well, let me see. Maybe if I step closer, I can zoom. Whoa, I went right through it. Sorry.
Don't do that.
Okay. Sorry for the nausea-inducing. Not sure I can, Elizabeth. Yeah. I'll go back. Is there a picture for this one? Oh, there is. Here. There. That's much nicer. So you can see that, you can get a sense of the color and the weave. It's gorgeous.
There's another question. Is it folded?
It folds. Yes. It opens, so that flap on the front with the three bands flips up, and then there are three more flaps on the inside that create sort of an enclosure. When the piece came in, it actually came in with a large scallop shell that was supposedly in the wallet when it was given to Samuel Parker. Whether or not that's true or not, or whether that's, lore that kind of that came to the piece as it was passed down through the family. Hopefully additional research might be able to, inform us whether or not that would have been something that would have been in a wallet given as a gift like that. So as we go through the exhibition, there's oh gosh, I'm not sure. I think we've got a little bit over 50 artworks in the exhibition. I won't be able to talk about each piece. So I'm going to sort of select pieces within each section. But if there are particular pieces that you see me pass by that you want to know about, put it in the chat, or and again, if you're one of the artists, feel free to speak up too. So the other piece I wanted to talk about in this section on legacy of conquest and indigenous persistence is this this drawing here by Andrew Vincent. Andrew Vincent is a mid-century Oregon painter who also worked on some WPA era projects. This drawing is a preliminary drawing for a mural that was painted in 1942 in Salem at the old Salem post office. The mural still exists. The building is across the street from the museum. It's no longer the post office. It's now an executive office building for the governor's staff, I think. But the mural is still in there in a room that's used for meetings and storage. But this drawing tells sort of the story of Oregon through the eyes of Euro-American artist, and depicting Jason Lee on the left side there with his arm outstretched, Euro-American settlers on the right side, and what would have been modern day Salem at the top, which includes what would have been the recently built state capitol, the old Marion County Courthouse, and the mill that used to be on the Willamette downtown. Just to kind of quickly mention a couple other pieces in here, there's a wonderful Robert Adams photograph here, titled Cape Disappointment, of an old growth tree stump, which seemed an appropriate piece for this section, as it talks about the combination of cultures and the arrival of Lewis and Clark. These four prints over here are from a portfolio titled Native Perspectives on the Trail. The Missoula Art Museum, I believe, is in 2005, commissioned 20 Native American printmakers to create prints in response to the 200th anniversary of Lewis and Clark's arrival in the Northwest. And these are four prints from that portfolio of 20, includes print by Jason Elliott, Melissa Bobb, Ramon Murillo, and Corky Claremont. That's Bob McCauley's piece there, called When Worlds Collide. And we're going to move through here. Yeah, oh, there we go. Okay, sorry, I'm not the best driver here. This is a piece by Natalie Ball, Klamath artist. It's called Dancers Kakol, the Bone Dancers. And it is an artwork that addresses, or sort of talks about the ghost dance, and as it took place by Klamath dancers in the late 19th, early 20th century. Ghost dance is a sort of fascinating phenomenon, ceremony that came that was performed across the West and by many Western tribes in the late 19th, early 20th century. And the idea behind the ceremony was to try to bring back ancestors to help fight against the oppression of the American government and the white Euro settlers that were moving through the West and and destroying the native cultures that existed there. Down below here, Natalie has a replica jacket of a Modoc Wars cavalry jacket. And over here is a copy of Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. The ghost dance was the ceremony that that was being disrupted that ultimately led to the massacre at Wounded Knee. Getting ready to move out of the legacy of conquest and native persistence into the Columbia River Gorge section. Does anyone have other questions about this section before we move on? Okay, great. If you think of one, go ahead and shout it out or put it in the chat. So as we move in here, we start off with Tom Prachaska's sculpture at the falls. You know, Tom can be vague about the meanings in his work. I think he likes to leave it up to the viewer to interpret. And for me, I interpret this as sort of a ghostly figure, perhaps fishing at Celilo. As we move through into the Columbia River Gorge, we have prints by James Labrador. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this painting because it has an interesting story. So this painting here is by the artist named John Ferry. It was painted in 1910. And Ferry was commissioned by the Union Pacific Railroad to create a series of paintings of Glacier National Park. So this actually is not a painting of the Columbia River Gorge. It's a painting of the mountain, a mountain near, I forget which mountain it is, Heaven's Peak, I think it's called, Heaven's Peak, at Glacier National Park. The reason that it's in this section, though, is to make the sort of geological connection between Glacier National Park and the Columbia River Gorge, is that's where the ice dam was located that burst, causing the floods that would ultimately create the gorge. And so in all of these geographical sections, or at least most of them, I think, the connections between the works are not strictly geographical, but also geological, cultural connections to those places as well. So this was actually one of 400 paintings that John Ferry made of Glacier National Park. He had a studio out there and was cranking these things out, and they were actually used as advertisements for the rail line that had recently been built to the park. So these paintings hung all across the country in rail stations, and it was an ad campaign actually called "See America First," and you can even still read that on the plaque that's attached to the front of this heavy wood frame. This must have been the painting that hung in the Salem train station, but when the museum opened in 1998, this was already on campus, probably floating around in closets and storage spaces, and it was brought over to the museum. And this is the first time that it's been on view in the museum. It's lived for probably the last 10 years or so at the Carnegie Library Law Center at the corner of Winter and State, where it hangs in their mock trial room. Oh, here. We'll talk about, actually, I really like this series of 3 paintings in print here. This is William Parrott's painting of Multnomah Falls from, I believe, the late 1800s, let's see, 1890s circa. This is a Lillian Pitts print called Water Dreams, I believe the title, yes, Water Dreams. That was made more recently at Crow Shadow. And this is a American Impressionist painting by an Oregon painter named Melvin Wire from 1910. And I really like how they all relate to each other. They're all kind of depicting the gorge in their own way. And they also kind of touching on sort of the art historical styles of the day, at least with the Impressionist piece and the more Hudson River style piece of Parrott's painting. I'm going to click on Lillian's image so you can see the print better. This is, for people who know Lillian Pitt's work, she often uses imagery from Columbia Gorge pictographs and petroglyphs in her work. This print in particular, I really enjoy the loose process marks created in the background that seem to suggest the water with the petroglyph or pictograph form kind of floating above it, as if it's in the water or under the water, perhaps unable to be seen because that section of the gorge has been flooded. Also in here, we've got, oh great, we've got a picture of this. This is a really fantastic purse by Pat Gold. It's not the greatest picture of it, but it gives you a sense. And Pat Gold has been very important in sort of recreating the weaving traditions of the Wasco, Warm Springs, Columbia River people. And we have a number of her works in the collection. This piece has never been on view in the museum, as I know, until now. So we've had it on view over in Waller Hall in a small student curated exhibition, but it hasn't been in the galleries. And so we're really pleased to have this one out. And we have other works by Pat upstairs in the Grand Ronde Gallery. Any questions before we move through out of the gorge section and into the high desert? No? Okay. I'm going to try to keep this moving along so it doesn't drag on forever and there's time for questions at the end. Along the wall here, there are 3 drawings by James Castle, the renowned self-taught artist from Boise, Idaho. We have a few more drawings by Castle in the collection. And as I've been here for 15 years, and I cannot remember a time that they have been in the gallery. So these are great to have out. I think, okay, good. We can get a good picture of Cabin. So you can see, for those who don't know, James Castle, he was born deaf and he never learned to speak. He, I think, was born in the early 1900s, 1900. He spent time at the Idaho School for the Deaf, but then ultimately left that school and lived with his family. I believe it was his sister or his brother that he lived with. Since he didn't speak, he couldn't hear, his way of communicating came out through his artwork. He's really well known for these drawings made with the most simple materials. They're found cardboard and charcoal soot that he drew with. They're exquisite objects, and they, sometimes they're like in Cabin is a pretty straight up depiction. Other times, like in this one, Corral with Trees, you can see he's sort of creating this sort of fantasy world where there's like a redwood tree that you're driving through. So you can see his imagination, at work with these strange trees here. You see these trees a lot in his work. He also made collages and as little assemblages too. He's well known for those. The Philadelphia Museum of Art did a major exhibition of his years ago, and that is Castle. As we come down here, this is another great juxtaposition that I'm really pleased with in the exhibition, with the oldest artwork or if you consider an artwork, the oldest object in the collection. This is a remnant of the Fort Rock sandal. So most of you may know that some of the oldest shoes in the world were found in the Fort Rock area and sort of south central Oregon, in the caves, in an area that used to have ancient lakes. This remnant of the sandal is approximately 9,000 years old. We have a few remnants of sandals here at the museum. They were, again, objects that when the museum opened, had been kind of floating around in department offices and was brought over to the museum. It was sort of a surprise, I think, to everyone at that time when it came. And we've never exhibited any of them. We've had a conservator prepare a safe storage mount for it so that we can show them to people in storage and we can handle them in storage. But this is the first time we've actually put one out on view. it's kind of hard to, well, that's, I guess you can get it. You can get a sense for it. That's actually the sole of the shoe. So the shoes would have had kind of an enclosure made out of a finer woven grass. This is sagebrush, from what I understand, that's been twined and woven. And then just over here, let me see if we've got an image. We don't. Okay, this is an artwork by Michael Boonstra. Michael is a Eugene artist who teaches at Oregon State in Corvallis. It's hard to photograph these pieces. It's actually is a photograph. I'm going to back up a little bit so you can see it better. It's a photograph on metal that he has pixelated prior to having it printed on the metal. And then he has incised lines, hand engraved lines that follow the grid of the pixelization. The image that he photographed is of the area out near Fort Rock, at the edge of the Great Basin, the area where those ancient lakes existed. This is, I believe, one of the ancient lake beds. I forget the title he has on it. It's called Range, Blue Hill, and Tri Valley. And so as I said, there's pixelated squares that have been delineated with engraved lines. There are approximately 15,000 squares on this piece, with the idea that they each represent 1 year of known evidenced human existence in the area that we now call Oregon. So it relates kind of directly back to the people who created the Fort Rock sandals. There's other great pieces in here. This is a fantastic painting by the Western artist and painter and illustrator Ray Irely. This is a painting by Jefferson Tester, and a really beautiful pencil drawing by Martha K. Renfro of a juniper tree. Any questions before we move into the coast? Oh, great. Okay. I want to start the coast with this amazing Silette's dance skirt by Robert Kenta. This is a piece that we've had at the museum since 2015 and have not had on view yet. Robert is head of the cultural department at Silette's, and the museum has worked with him on a number of projects over the years. This piece was purchased in 2015 with funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. And there's actually also a video available through the website, and I believe on the exhibition page, of Robert talking about his work, both regalia making, the work he does as a regalia maker, but also the work that he does in presenting the ceremonies that they have out at Silette's, and the responsibility that he feels with that work. It's a really wonderful short interview with him.
Jonathan?
Yes.
You can actually link, there's a link on the label.
Oh, there is. Okay, I can't. Let me click on that. Oh, there it is. Oh, okay. Yeah, why don't we watch just a little bit of it? Bring Robert's voice.
There's no sound.
You're not hearing the sound?
Uh-uh.
Oh, shoot. That's too bad. Well, I encourage people to go and listen to it. That's too bad. I was enjoying having the artist's voice, but I think I was the only one who could hear it. It must be because of the way I'm sharing my screen. I strongly suggest people who have interest in that to watch the video. It's really a really good one. So in addition to Robert's dance skirt, we've got these two fantastic baskets by Elizabeth Hickox. She is a renowned Wyatt basket weaver, so Northern California. She's really well known for this particular style, with the tops, with those kind of pedestal tops at the top of her very finely woven baskets. She was kind of in her day, she was well collected. These were not made for use. These were made for the kind of the collector world. And she was connected with an art dealer who helped place her baskets into collections. It was a time when arts and crafts movement was really popular in the United States, and her work was appreciated by those same collectors. She's really well known. She's collected across the country and in major museums, including the Smithsonian. We are really pleased to have these two wonderful examples. This is the first time that they've been in the gallery as well. So, whoa, sorry about that. I'm going to talk quickly about this Carl Hall painting. There's another painting in the other gallery that we'll talk about in a minute. But this is, so Carl Hall, for those who don't know, was a Willamette Valley painter. He taught at Willamette from the late 40s, I think 48 until 1986, so close to 40 years. And he was one of the first artists, if not the first artist, to really investigate the Willamette Valley landscape through his painting. He was a hugely influential teacher, and he had a very accomplished career, especially in the 1950s when he regularly exhibited in New York, and was included in a number of Whitney annuals, which they did back then. This is a painting from 1990, and it's Carl's last major painting. Shortly after he made this, he had a series of strokes that prevented him from being able to continue the work the way that he had. He died in 1996, and it's full of symbolism, as a lot of Carl's paintings are. It's a little bit hard to tell in here, but there's a looseness. It's the way he's handling the paint, which is a little bit different from his earlier work. It's just a really gorgeous painting. I love this solitary figure kind of making their way through this undulating landscape, the shifting dunes as it comes forward, and the stairs to nowhere. Yeah, it's one of my favorite paintings by him that we have in the collection, and I have not seen it in the gallery since I have been here, so I'm really happy to have that out. See down here, we've got one of our greatest hits, perhaps people would say, Hank Pander painting, Burning the New Carissa. For those of you who have been to the museum regularly, you'll recognize that painting. It's often hanging in the Carl Hall Gallery, which is our gallery for Northwest Art. This is a wonderful painting by Nelson Sandgren, Corvallis painter who taught at Oregon State, and an exquisite drawing by Salem's own Bonnie Schulte, titled Slet's Foothills. And it's a drawing that she made back in the 70s when she lived out at the coast. All right, we're going to move now into this smaller section here in the back called Human Impact on the Land, and talk about some of Joe Fedderson's work. This print and linen bag are both by Joe Fedderson. Joe often uses motifs throughout his work, so he'll develop a motif that's based on, well, these both are from his, well, the motif that he's included here is called his cul-de-sac motif, and it's part of his Urban Indian series. So Joe's very interested in geometric abstraction, both as it exists in traditional native work, in beadwork or in corn husk bags, or in basketry, as well as kind of contemporary uses of geometric abstraction. And so in these pieces, he's, at least in the print, he's kind of merging both of them. He's got what looks like, sort of your traditional geometric abstraction, which Joe thinks of as being abstracted from the land, from landscape. And then he has his own abstraction that he's created from the landscape, which is an aerial view of a housing development or a cul-de-sac. So that's what these lines are. It's just like the street coming down, here's the cul-de-sac, and here are the houses that go off around the side. And he superimposed the two on top of each other. This print is titled Wyatt View, and it was made to actually commemorate the decision not for humans to not have an impact on the land. It was commemorating a housing development that was not built out on the Umatilla Reservation, the tribe had received federal funding for a housing development to go in on land, and it was discovered through, as they were preparing to do the work, that there were human remains and burial grounds on that land that they were considering putting the housing development on. There was a debate about whether or not they should, remove the remains and, move them to another location and proceed with the development. But the decision was made not to do that, to give the money back, and to forego the economic development connected to that and the housing. But they felt that culturally it was more important to allow their ancestors' remains to stay where they were, and to not disturb them. And so this is Joe's piece, kind of commemorating that decision. This is one of my favorite pieces by Charles Haney. It's called Tillamook Burn, and it was made in I think in the 1950s, so sort of towards the end of the series of fires. Actually, there's no date. I was assuming it's from the 50s. But Tillamook Burn was a series of fires that took place over several years, if not decades, out in the Tillamook Forest. Michael Brophy painting over here. And this photograph, photograph here by Terry Totemeyer. It's called An Abandoned Rail Cut. This is just below Mary Hill, out across the river from the Dalles, right in the gorge. I'm going to move us into our last section. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, we're moving into the Willamette Valley. This is home. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to back up so we can see both Carl's painting and Marie's blanket tower together. So for this painting here is by Carl Hall. It was painted in 1948. It's the largest piece that Carl Hall ever made, and it's the first time it's been publicly seen. It was painted originally directly on the walls of a home in Fairmont Hill here in Salem, in South Salem, the home of a doctor named Charles Wood. Charles delivered Carl's children, and the understanding is that this painting, along with a series of other paintings that he made in the same room, were part of his payment for his doctorate services. And this is the largest painting that Carl did in that room, but he actually, he painted murals on all the walls surrounding the entire dining room of their house. So when you sat in the dining room, you were sitting sort of surrounded by the landscape. We decided, so they were originally painted in 1948. And in 2006, the people who owned the house at that time, the Rowells, decided that they wanted to do some renovations. They wanted to change the look of the dining room. Maybe I think they were going to take down a wall, and they didn't want the artworks to be lost. So they contacted the museum, and the museum contracted with Nina Olson, painting conservator up in Portland, to go out to the house and remove all the murals. There's this one, and I think there are 5 or 6 other ones that are smaller, not as wide. The room, this was on the big wall in the room, and then the rest of the walls were broken up by windows and doorways, so that the width of the other paintings are not as wide. So Nina removed them all. They were put into storage in 2006, and then we were sort of kind of periodically would have discussions about what to do with them. And this past spring, when we decided that this piece was going to be in the exhibition, Nina pulled this one out of storage, and working actually along with one of the museum interns who has an interest in conservation, they spent the summer doing the conservation treatment on this, mounting it to an aluminum panel, doing the necessary in-painting, and stabilizing the whole painting, getting it ready for exhibition. And so this is its debut, and we're really happy to have it here. And once it comes down, it will go on permanent view over at the law school, outside Paulus Lecture Hall here on campus, which is a lecture hall where most of the museum's lectures normally take place. So if you've been to those, as you walk into Paulus Lecture Hall, there's a little seating kind of alcove there, actually a decent sized seating alcove, and that's where this painting will be installed. We've got actually what was kind of fun once we got this big Carl Hall painting into the gallery. As you see the painting at flood stage, you see the river at flood stage, that's in 1948. And if you turn around and you step up to April Waters' paintings, you see the river at flood stage in 2006. So there's a really kind of great sort of relationship between those two pieces. Let's see. Got Marie Watts Blanket Tower. Most people are probably familiar with that who've been to the museum. It's usually upstairs in the Grand Ron Gallery. It's really fun to see it in a new space, especially with more room around it. I feel like the work really looks fantastic in the Atrium Gallery, and it's nice to see it associated with different artworks as opposed to always being up in that one space. And this piece, for those who don't know, Marie's work is kind of an example of social sculpture. So this reflects the Willamette Valley in this place, in that all the blankets were donated by either members of the museum, members of the Willamette University community, or members of the larger kind of Willamette Valley Salem community. The blankets were donated along with stories about those specific blankets. And so Marie takes all that information, the stories and the blankets, and assembles them into the sculpture that reflects the community in which the piece was commissioned. We have Patrick Collier's series of photographs here from an ongoing, or sort of, I guess it's probably over by now. It's now that he lives in the city. But these were photographed. This is a series of photographs that Patrick made while he was running a farm out near Staten, east of Salem, and depict the field burnings that take place annually, or used to take place annually. I believe those things are starting to be that practice is beginning to be stopped. And then finally, of course, we have a Dan May piece, because you can't have a show about time and place and not in Salem and not include Dan May. Wonderful artist and more abstract interpretation of the concept. And then here, we'll just back out. Let's see, get our last, sorry for this bad driving. There we go. Our salon wall of a number of Salem artists who are just responding to the beauty of the landscape, the skies, the rivers, the farms, and the fields in the Willamette Valley. There's a number of, it's a piece by James Mattingly, Tom Creelan, Sudell McCullough, John Van Driel, Jim Schull. There's two wonderful prints down here by Paul Gentry, who just passed away last year. He was a printmaker, wood engraver from Independence or Monmouth, I believe. And this painting over here is actually a painting of Willamette Valley from 1897 by an artist named Marie Craig, who was the first art teacher at Willamette University, and she taught here in the late 19th century. So that kind of sums up the tour, I think. And if there are artists whose work is in the show that want to add anything about their work, if there's anyone who has questions, they want to put it in the chat or just kind of shout them out, it's sort of open at this point. So I'm done rambling on. Anything in the chat? Let me see.
So much to see here. That's a comment.
There is a lot. There's a lot to see. I hope you guys spend some time. What's great about the 3D tours, you can spend time, looking at things from home. And there's all the text, all the label copy is included, and the exhibition's up through December 18th.
Jill says, thank you so much for this special tour. Will the recording be available for the public, and if so, where?
That's a good question. We'll have to upload the recording to either Vimeo or to YouTube, and then I guess we can put a link to the tour on the exhibition page. We'll need to figure that out, Jill. This is one of the things. This is the first time we've done it, so we're not totally sure.
From Kathy, how do you get to the exhibit?
How do you get to the 3D tour exhibit? Is you go to if you go to the museum's website and click on the exhibition page, there's a link off of the exhibition page. The other way to get there is to come to the museum.
From Karen, I especially like the relationship of the paintings and other works. This will help when I walk through the exhibit. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of my favorite parts about the exhibition too, is just the variety of materials, the historic objects, the more kind of traditional regalia objects, alongside the paintings. I'm really enjoying the conversations that are happening between those objects. It feels very natural, which I really enjoy. I'm really happy with that.
And one more, this will make my visit to the exhibition in person much richer. Cannot wait to see the April Waters painting. I've been hoarding a set of note cards of this series for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think we have a few more of those note cards in our shop, so.
And Andrea just posted the virtual tour on the chat.
Okay, great. So there's a link directly there. All right, well, if there's no more questions.
Oh, wait, one more.
Okay, good. I'm not rushing people.
From Margaret Coe Clark. Who painted the large volcano painting?
Oh, the one over here is by John Ferry, F-E-R-Y.
Thanks.
Well, thank you all for coming. This was an experiment, and I think it went all right. So hopefully we'll do more of these sorts of things, but I guess more hopeful is that everyone can come back to the museum and we can start doing public tours again, hopefully sometime next year.
It went great. Well done. From Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
And Kathy says thanks.
Thank you guys for coming.